Hello, Saxo fans, episode 31. Yeah, these have whipped by, haven't they? Okay, so quite a bit to do in this episode, and I briefly mentioned the first thing in episode 30. So we've had the extension plans approved and builders on board and ready to go. So we start that in probably about 10 days' time. So obviously I need to move the car and move the murder tent. Finally, time to say goodbye to the murder tent. It's a fond farewell because it has been really good. You know, it's really enabled a lot of stuff and obviously kept a lot of the elements away from the car. It obviously still technically is outside, but it has essentially just kept the car dry. Albeit, you know, the misty days and high humidity and stuff like that, it still does get damp in there. So it's not like a complete sort of garage environment at all. I've had a few questions about that tent over the past year or so. So it's a birch tree carport, I think is what they described it as. It was a 6x3. I think it was about £250. I think I got it from Mano. But yeah, you'd have to have a Google for that. But yeah, that's what I found. It's been great. It's a scaffold construction rather than just sort of like clippy poles or anything like that. So it's quite strong. You can bolt it down. I just sandbagged mine just because I'm on block paving here. The only downsides I would say is the zips are quite weak. They break after a little while with constant usage. And the elastic strips that it comes with to sort of tie all the cover to the poles, they lose their elasticity after a couple of months. And I ended up just replacing them with cable ties. And on a windy day, all those cable ties just break. So a healthy supply of cable ties really will keep your covers intact. So anyway, we'll get all of that taken down. We'll get the car moved, and then we'll focus on what's on the bench here. So most of you, if you watched episode 30, will be familiar with the intake manifold. So the injectors that I have are, these are just the standard C2 ones that came out of the C2 rail. So I'm going to use the C2 rail, because obviously it bolts nicely to the C2 manifold, but I'm not going to use the injectors. I've got a set of Siemens Pico 690cc's, obviously a set of 4, which will go in. I don't believe they're like a complete, just straight swap. I think there's a little bit of messing around to do with getting the fuel rail in. So we'll do that as well, but I don't know what that challenge is until they arrive. So when they do, we'll do that in this particular video, I think. Or we'll try to at least anyway. But mainly I want to get on to start doing the cylinder head. So this is obviously the C2 cylinder head, and at the moment it's currently standard. I need to finish off the port matching, which I won't show in this video because it's just the same as the stuff that we did with the C2 inlet manifold. So I'll finish that off. I'll give it a good clean. It's going to go in the parts cleaner first, and so I can work on it in a clean way. Obviously I'll clean all the combustion chamber side. I'll clean all the valves. I'm going to use the valves out of this particular engine, obviously because they suit and they're the right size. I'm going to just check them with a bit of blue and see what the seating's like, and if they need lapping, then I'll lap the valves in. And then also I'm going to get just the tiniest of skims done. There's a good machine shop down the road, and I'm going to get the tiniest wafer of material moved from the top just to give it a nice fresh finish, and make sure it seals good with a head gasket. So yeah, that's basically where we're going to get to. I do need to take a few bits out of the Saxo engine, which is just behind the camera. Namely, I want to use the valve springs from that particular engine. So yeah, I need to, and I need the cams, I think, as well. So I do need to start taking that engine apart a little bit. But yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it because I'm running out of space in the garage. I don't know where to put it all. Anyway, first of all, let's go and move the car and take the tent down. just pause the cleaning there just for a second. Just want to show you the difference in what I've done between one that I've nearly finished and one that I haven't started yet. So this here is these are exhaust valves, these are intake valves. So intake valves obviously much cleaner, don't really need a lot of work. The exhaust valves have got a lot of carbon on. You can see that in the ones here, so just off the top of the camera there. So obviously a lot of carbon built up in those. Yeah, some real nasty stuff. You know, it's all, you know, it's almost sort of, yeah, coming away in chunks, if you like. It's not pretty, but yeah, that's the standard stuff. And the difference between these two here, so these ones I've obviously cleaned. So what I've got in my tank, as I've said before, is just 50-50 degreaser and water mix, and then here I've got some brake and clutch cleaner as well, which I'm just using down the bores here to get rid of any carbon buildup. It's taken a bit of time, but I think it's worth doing. Obviously it'll be as fresh as you like, and yeah, so I'm not worried about the actual surface of the cylinder head, because obviously that's going to get skimmed, so I don't need to do anything with that. And then it'll just be a case of getting rid of the oil and the gasket and everything off it. I will get this vapour blasted, and obviously it'll get cleaned a number of times before it gets painted and rebuilt to get rid of any residue that might be in there. Obviously it needs to be as clean as possible, but yeah, we'll carry on for now, and we'll get the exhaust valves, the runners, as clean as I possibly can using the equipment I've got. Anyway, let's carry on. There we go then, Saxo fans. That's as far as I'm going to take the cylinder head for now, because it needs to go off to the vapour blasters. I'm going to send the two cam ladders off with it, so I've just quickly lobbed those through the parts cleaner to get most of the oil and horribleness off them. So yeah, these can go. The port matching's been done. The only thing I do want to send with these is the thermostat housing, which bolts to the side of the cylinder head. And I thought, well, it kind of looks, when it's all bolted up, it kind of looks part of the head. So it'd be a real shame if that's not just as clean as the rest of it. So what we'll do is we'll whip that off the Saxo engine, because the C2 one is plastic and horrible. And I'll quickly show you now, and then we'll take off the Saxo one. Right, here's the C2 thermostat. As you can see, it's this bit here, all plastic and horrible and nasty. Yeah, it doesn't look anywhere near as attractive as the Saxo one, which is a nice metal one. So we'll pull this off, and we'll give it a quick clean up, and then we'll get it ready for the vapour blasters. Okay, so while we wait for those bits from the vapour blasters, I wanted to just get back onto the intake manifold, and namely the fuel rail, and getting everything bolted on properly. So I've bought some new injectors. So the ones here, the black ones, are the original C2 VTS items. They will not flow enough fuel for the power levels we're looking to achieve. So yeah, a replacement has been found. So these are a set of Pico 690cc injectors. They are a straight fitment into the casting here, and they're a straight fitment into the fuel rail, which is a bonus. They also share the same plug, I believe. I need to check with the Saxo loom. that they share the same plug as the original injectors. So they should be plug and play, which is a bonus. Now, the only problem I've got is their physical size. So you can see the C2 ones are genuinely much bigger. So let's just measure those. So they're about 65 mil, give or take. And these are 48.5 mil. So I need to move the fuel rail, looking at that, about 17 mil closer to the mounting points here. Now, the fuel rail does have these two metal lugs here that hold the rail normally in place with the standard injectors. So these will go in there like that. Excuse me. Right, so the problem I've got then is if I was to mount an injector into the rail, just do one very quickly, and then mount it in its standard position, you can see the injector would be spraying in fresh air basically. So the whole thing needs to move down this way. So my plan is to essentially, rather than mount on top of this and bolt through it from underneath, what I'm going to do is move the mount underneath and bolt through the top. But to do that, I just need to take some of the plastic off this bit of the moulding here, just to allow it to clear the intake runner. So I'm going to have a little bit of a play with that. I'm just going to go slow and steady, I think, with a Dremel, just to take it just enough away. So, and obviously just get that 17 mil gap. So hopefully that'll do the job. So I think, yeah, let's get the Dremel out and start taking some plastic off. Right, just before I got the Dremel out, I thought I'll just double check the maths and make sure that my mounting position is going to be right. So I'll just run you through that. More because somebody else might be doing this in the future, and it would have been good to know this before I started. So the difference in the injectors is 16.7 mil in terms of their overall length. So that's how much closer the fuel rail needs to come to the injector ports. Now, I'm not going to change the mounting position here on the C2 cast manifold. I don't want to take any material out of that because obviously it's a nice sturdy position, but I am going to mount the other side. So these are 6.4 millimeters thick, which means that's already a little bit off where we need to go. So as I say, I need to be 16.7 millimeters closer here. So that's already 6.4, which leaves me 10.3 millimeters that I need to find somewhere else. So that's going to come out of the mounting point here on the fuel rail. These are 18 millimeters in depth here, this little chunky section. So essentially what I'm going to do is cut this down to a 7.7 millimeter thick section. That will give us 16.7 mil closer to the casting where we need to be. The other thing I need to do is these tabs here then do clash with the actual inlet manifold themselves. So we'll probably just have to take a couple of the corners off just so we've got some clearance. That should be correct. I will tell you whether it works in a minute. There we go then. That is fuel rail mounted. Job's a good one. So yeah, it was a little bit tricky in the end because I had to take quite a bit out of those. But hopefully you can just see that down here. yeah, these fit quite nicely now. Obviously, I had to take quite a bit of depth out as well to allow the casting to sort of sit fully up against the back of the rail there, but that is very secure now. It's not going anywhere at all. So I'm very aware that I've still got to make the modifications to allow the cable throttle to go on. There is a mounting point here, and I'm fairly sure that I could probably put a mounting point down here somewhere if I had to. So this might still need to come apart yet, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Yeah, but for now, this is going to get wrapped up and put on the shelf. So in the meantime, let's get back to the cylinder head stuff. Right, cylinder head valves, nice and easy this one. So these are C2 VTS valves. They have the same exhaust valve as the Saxo, they're the same size, but the intake is a 1mm oversize, which is why I'm so keen to use the C2 head, and obviously the intake manifold bolts straight to it. So as you can see, I've already cleaned these, and I just wanted to show you how I've done that, and I've done one of the exhaust ones as well. I've done this for no other reason than just to decarbon them essentially, and obviously put something nice and fresh back into the cylinder head when that comes back. Fairly straightforward process, fairly quick, especially on the intake side because they're not as bad. It's the exhaust side where it's properly baked on that takes a bit more work, but it's a very simple process. So I'll very quickly show you how I'm doing that now. We'll just go in with an exhaust valve to begin with, so you can see how sort of bad this is really. I say bad, you know, it's obviously had 70-odd thousand miles in it, I think, from when I bought the engine, and obviously it's secondhand, so you can see it's fairly crusty. A few carbon deposits on there. The seats all look good though, fairly clean, but we'll get these cleaned up and looking decent. There's a little step in here as well that has a little carbon deposit in there. In fact, if I can show you the other valve, you can see there's actually a little step in the stem here, which is less pronounced here because it's got a lot of carbon buildup in there. So we'll clean these to sort of this sort of standard. So you can see this one here is not completely perfect, but you know, I don't want to be too abrasive on the valve itself. Otherwise, obviously, you start messing with clearances and all that kind of stuff. So all I'm looking to do is just give them a clean. I'm not trying to take off too much material. Anyway, so the process of doing this is quite simple. So first thing really is to get a little bit of tape, because I'm going to put this in my drill. So I'm going to grab a little bit of tape and just put it around here. This is just to protect the valve really, because obviously the drill chuck is hardened steel and I don't want to damage the valve. So just going to very gently just nip that up in there. Hardly anything up. Essentially just need to nip it in there. So that's that done. Then we're going to get some 600 grit sandpaper. No, I'm just joking. Do not use sandpaper. It's absolutely far too abrasive. What you need is some of these scarring pads, that type of thing. Scotch Brite, yeah, similar stuff. Essentially not particularly abrasive, but you know, hard enough to break down what's on the surface. And then in a tub here, I've got is some brake and clutch cleaner. So yeah, you can buy this stuff online. It's pretty good. So all I'm doing, I'll just move this for you, is essentially using the drill to rotate the valve. Give this a good soak and holding that in there. And I'm being fairly gentle, not putting too much pressure on. Let the drill do the work and the pad. This takes a few minutes, these ones. Keep the fluid moving. Okay, that one's pretty much done, I think. Looks way better than before. Just show you one in comparison. So you can see most of the carbon gone. Really gentle process. I'm not taking any material off the valve. Obviously, I don't want to induce any oil leaks or any air leaks past the valve. Obviously, that is a big no-no, hence why we're not using sandpaper. So anyway, I'll repeat that process for the rest of the exhaust valves, and they'll be ready to go back into the wash for a final clean. Right then, Saxo fans, a little bit of a reveal. No, we're not talking about mod dewalt. We are talking about cylinder head. So it is back from the vapor blasters and it's been skimmed. So this is the reveal. So you can see everything is looking fresh as a daisy. Really pleased with how it's all come out. Give you a close-up of some of it. Basically brand new. I need to replate this stub here, the coolant stub. I can dip that in the plating tank on its own, no problem. Cam ladders came out really well. They've all just got a nice light coat of WD on the moment, just to save them. And the cylinder head has been vapor blasted and skimmed. So it was vapor blasted first, then skimmed. It's been through the wash about 10 times. Not literally, obviously. Let me give you a close-up of the skim. So yeah, really pleased with how that looks. Lovely fresh surface. I say I had the smallest amount taken off as possible. So that's come up really nicely. Now, one thing to note, when the vapor blasters do this stuff, they're very aware that getting any of the vapor blast media in the oil galleries is a big no-no, because on these cylinder heads, the way they're drilled and the galleries are drilled, they're then sealed again with ball bearings. And obviously taking these out and refitting them, yeah, it's just not a good idea. Just leave them alone. So what was done to prevent any of the vapor blast media getting into the galleries was just to seal off this top face, which meant that some of this is still a little bit oily in here, and it's not as clean as perhaps the rest of it. But that's intentional, because once that stuff gets in there, there's almost no chance of getting it out. So as I say, I've washed it. It's been to the vapor blasters and then been through a hot wash again. It's then been to the skimmers and been through a hot wash again. So that is basically safe and ready to build. And I'm absolutely confident there's no blast media in any of the galleries. So that's it. There we are. That is basically now ready to go. I do need to buy a couple of little bits. I'll say the valves are all done. You saw me clear those. The spring seats are done. But what I do need to get is the springs out of the original Saxo engine, which is sat just over here. So this engine will get stripped down in the next video. We'll probably just take the top end off, get the springs out, get the cams out, and then we'll turn our attention back to the cylinder head. But anyway, that's it for this video. Hopefully it was interesting and yeah, informative at least. But tune in next time and we'll hopefully get this cylinder head built, and I really, really want to bolt the inlet manifold to it so it looks all shiny. But anyway, we'll get to that. So as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you again in episode 32. Bye for now.